Shut up and sit down.
Hey, what's up guys? My name is Bradley Bartek Sisma and I'm accompanied by the gorgeous
Sam, also known as Spins Rock.
And today, well, welcome to another episode of DLGTP, Different Level Gaming, the podcast. And we have a different topic today, as we promised last episode. Today we're going to be talking about esports and how they've evolved, our opinions on them. And we're also going to have a special guest on. It might be in the title of the video. And if it's not, you'll figure it out eventually because he's going to be in the episode. But yeah, so esports is really important to me specifically, seeing as it's probably the line of work that I want to go into. But to a lot of people, it's very like a sketchy subject almost because it's a video game, right?
It's controversial.
It is controversial for a lot of people. So to me, it's really important because it's something that I'm really interested in. It's also something that I'm currently working in.
Right.
So it's really important to me specifically. But we're gonna see my opinion, Sam's opinion, and our special guest's opinion on esports.
Yeah.
So to start off, I'm gonna start with you on this question because it's a very generic question and it's based at both of us as like an opening statement before we actually get into the detailed stuff. Is what is esports to you?
Esports is just, it's like some sort of like competition or some sort of like a game, if you will, as like a game as in like basketball and stuff, but it's just a game, so like it's like a computer or a console of some sort.
Because the E in esports stands for electronic. Yeah.
Yes, it's an electronic sport.
Electronic.
It uses electronics. Like, I mean, I guess technically, if you had some sort of basketball with like electronic magnets
inside the ball, it could be an esport. Yeah. I've never thought about that. That's actually pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, I never thought about it that way, but yeah, that's a true statement.
Yeah, esports are just sports that uses electronics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say so. So, esports to me is a competition of. Actually, it's going to be hard for me to explain it here without ruining like what I'm going to be saying later in the episode because esports is a very like specific thing to me because it involves a bunch of things that have to come together to create the esport, which is why one of the questions later that we have is what separates a game from an esport. So I'm actually gonna pass here almost just so that we can actually like get a full analysis of what an esport is. Do you have anything else to say?
On what separates?
Well, okay, so no. Actually, I'll kind of like. Well, this part's a whole bunch sketchy because our script here is a little bit different than we usually than we did it last episode. So I'm just gonna ask you a totally random question right here, right? So, what are to you like the most interesting esports that you understand right now or want to understand or anything like that?
When you think of esports, the first thing that comes to mind is League of Legends. That's mainly because of you. I don't really keep up to date with esports, but the only ones I really understand are slightly League of Legends. Like I understand slightly how it works, but the one I probably understand the best is CS:GO.
Yeah. Well,
just because it's a FPS and I've played it before.
Yeah, well, FPS games, I'd say, are the easiest for anybody to understand.
Right.
Because regardless of if you play games or not, you can still see there's a guy with a gun and he's shooting other people, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, who's the best at doing that? But yeah, that's a reasonable answer. I think CS:GO is the third largest esport. No, fourth. It would have been fourth because I'm pretty sure.
Fourth?
Yeah, because it's not in any specific order, but I think it's. This isn't any specific order. I'm not being biased here, but I think it's League of Legends, Dota 2, and StarCraft before.
Oh, I really
before Counter-Strike. StarCraft is really big, especially in South Korea.
Right.
Because that's where esports really started. That's why they have such a big like infrastructure for all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so now we're gonna get into the pretty much one of the main questions that we have here, which is what separates a game from a sport and an esport from a traditional sport. So for me, esports and traditional sports are which this might sound really weird, but to me they're very similar because for any sport to be successful, like technically, because this wouldn't be electronic, we could play a game of patty cake right now. Just be like, oh yay!
I've never played patty cake before.
It doesn't matter. Just let's just yeah, right.
Whoa.
So you see that could be considered a sport because it's physical. We actually like did that, and if we trained enough for that, that could be a sport. However,
we trained for the patty
exactly.
cake.
But however, if there's no fan base for it, or no one's interested in it, and no one's gonna be there to like, and we're not gonna put in the time and effort into it, and there's not gonna be no sponsors. Exactly, and there's gonna be no sponsors for it or anything like that. There's no, it's not a, it can't. There's no like sporting environment involved there because you need to have people that are interested in doing it, right? And people that are interested in being a part of, I guess, an organization or like a group of people who are striving to become the best at that specific thing. And what I think another thing that changes an esport from a sport, like, I mean, there's always the argument of speedrunning and stuff, but there's no, like, single player games can't be esports because you're not competing against anything. You can't really, I don't really consider games where you're competing against an AI to be an esport because then that completely takes away from the traditional sport part of things when it's people versus people. Like StarCraft's a 1v1 thing, which is still fine because tennis is a 1v1 thing.
But let me ask you this: like, what if we had like two people like speedrunning Portal, for example,
and whoever
against each other?
That's a race.
Well, a race, yeah.
I mean, so the difference that I see there is, I mean, technically that could be an esport because you can train and like learn all the like glitches and stuff.
First of all, like Portal 2 has like build your own courses and stuff, so technically someone could set up like a racing type thing.
So the problem I see with that is like there's no, it'll be pretty much the same thing every time because it's what you've learned to do this specific level, whereas in a game of League or in a game of soccer, there's always different strategies and places that you can be on the map because in like when you're doing a speed run of something, you pretty much want to do the same thing executed so that you can get like the perfect amount of time.
Well,
to get to
but we could always
place.
implement. What I'm saying here is like I know in Portal 2 on the PC edition, there's custom levels.
Yeah.
So like technically, if we could get like create new places for people to like run and whoever could do it the fastest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of hypocritical for me saying that it isn't an esport, but it's just it doesn't fulfill the criteria for me
For you personally,
to think that it's an esport, which is really weird because a lot of people don't consider most esports to be sports in the first place. So, I mean, I guess it's sort of hypocritical, but I mean, I think anybody who actually understands esports can sort of agree with that.
I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. But so. Yeah, so I think that there needs to be a good component of like team competition or individual competition, along with stuff like strategy, team play. Like I wrote down here, fan base, enough people interested, because like for this to be a career or for a person, there needs to be financial support. There needs to be like organizational support. Like so, like for example, DLG. Like we can't. DLG Ice, we couldn't be a thing without our organization because the coaches or the players would have to work overtime just to like get us involved into like competitions and stuff. So I think there needs to be a certain amount of infrastructure for it to become a sport. Like people need to be interested, people need to be like passionate about it, which is another issue. I guess people like to find it hard to get passionate about computer games because people are always taught like, oh no, you shouldn't. This is a pastime. You shouldn't do too much.
Or like you know, it's bad for you.
But yeah, and I have a quote here.
I was not allowed to read this quote.
Yeah, I haven't let Sam read this quote because I wanted to read it out for him and see if you can understand here. So, and the name at the end, which I'm gonna say because it's someone's name, I'm probably gonna completely butcher it, so forgive me. But blank and blank are not that dissimilar, he adds. There are tournaments where you have to climb up a ladder to eventually compete with the best. In terms of training, you need to put in the same amount of hours, perhaps even more in blank. You study strategy, technique, and opponents. All the elements are there. The excitement, the adrenaline, players crying of tears of sorrow and joy. And what are these blanks? They sound very similar, both of these stories, right? Well, can you fill in these blanks?
The sports and esports?
No, it's judo and League of Legends.
Oh.
So like a fighting, like, because like specifically these are both sports that include like a ladder system,
right?
Where because in League of Legends, if you don't understand League, if you're not a League viewer, there's a competitive ladder which you have to climb to eventually get to the top, and that's when you start getting scouted by like professional organizations and professional teams and such like. So that quote, which was by Blitchars, which is actually his last name. I don't think it's a gamer tag, so I'm sorry if I completely butchered that, but it's a really interesting quote because it shows how judo and league can be such a similar like things, seeing as they're both, at least to me, they're both sports, but to some people, judo is considered a very real sport because it's a competition between two people like fighting.
Yeah.
Whereas league is, I guess you could say, a button mashing game to people who don't know what it is.
Button
right?
mashing game.
Which is the furthest way that you can actually like describe League of Legends as a
League.
button mashing game.
I go Ash. I go solo mid.
This kid, the first game he played League, to be fair, it wasn't intro bots, but in the first game he ever played, he got a pentakill in intro bots.
You started making strange noises.
I started making. I was like,
because I got like a quad. You're like, go over the penta, go over the penta. And you're like, so I heard in the background.
That's pretty savage. Right. So
it's like 2 in the morning.
And then one thing, which this personally doesn't mean very much to me, but it might mean a lot to you out there who are like, oh, gaming is not a career path. Esports athletes can make from $100,000 to millions of dollars a year.
Right.
Like the best Faker who plays for a South Korean team, SKTT1, has gotten offers to trade teams for millions of dollars, but he's stayed loyal to his organization and stayed with them. So there's a lot of money involved in esports if that's what matters to you specifically. It doesn't matter much to me. I'm actually just extremely passionate about the game becoming a career path and the game itself. So
well, yeah, I mean, if you want to go into something, it should.
You need to make sure that there's you
you
shouldn't be doing it for the money, but you need to make sure you're able to support yourself.
Yeah, you should be able to live.
How our world works today, and there's also stuff like the Olympics, which are starting to consider picking it up. We're supposed to, and this is pretty much, from what I understand, it's pretty much confirmed, but there's still speculation about League of Legends in the 2020 Olympics.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. Yeah.
So, if the problem I see with it being in the Olympics is especially a problem that we see at Worlds, which is the biggest League of Legends tournament, is that certain regions will be dominant because obviously in the Olympics it's country based. So I think that Korea would just dominate.
Yeah.
And then places like I know, I'm trying to think for specifically, and this is a really good example because he's literally just left the LCS to go to the military, but Forgiven, who's from Greece, if he was to be on an Olympic team for Greece, it would be him and then a bunch of no-names because there's not many other really good Greek League of Legends players that we know of. So certain regions would have like one good player and the rest of them would be super stacked. Like I think from just from thinking about it right now, who would end up winning would be like Korea, China, and then maybe like Germany, and then maybe Sweden, and then like the US and something like that, because the US actually has good players when you put them together, but there's that whole NAEU feud that goes on in the league community. So
I am completely on track with this.
Yeah, so regardless of all that, my answer to the main question is are esports sports? Is League of Legends a sport? Is Dota 2 a sport? Is CSGO a sport? Is StarCraft a sport? My answer to that question is yes. So Sam is going to go ahead and give his views on the questions that we have.
As someone who isn't involved in esports, I think my opinion's changed over time, especially since knowing you.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is, I don't find there's no big difference between 5 guys versus another 5 people going in and using different strategies to try to get the other team's objective or whatever. Like,
I would also like to point out, like, we are both also sportsmen, like traditional sportsmen.
Yeah.
We both play.
Yeah.
I play ice hockey. He plays American football, like we said in the last episode. So
Yeah.
I'm not bashing traditional sports in any
Yeah.
sense because I love me some ice hockey. I'm Canadian. I love playing. It's a great sport. I actually destroyed my knee yesterday, and I was limping around. Dubai yesterday with my friends.
I carried him.
He carried me across the country because my leg was destroyed from playing a little bit too much hockey. So. Yeah, so continue. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that you guys are clear that we're not bashing traditional sports. We're just trying to make a point about esports.
Who leaves their house?
Sorry?
Who leaves their house?
Yeah, who leaves their house? Well, what's the point of that?
No. But no, I mean I consider it a sport because like it's both very objective oriented. It's both competitive. They're both they're both very strategical. The only thing that I could see myself getting annoyed at is like if someone that I called, now I don't know the exact definition of an athlete, but if someone was like, "Oh, I'm an athlete," then I asked them what they did, and they're like, "Oh, I play League of Legends," I'd be a bit like, Really?
Right,
But
so
what
that's a
exactly
good-
is the definition of an athlete? I'm not sure if it's
Right, so
someone
that's
who...
a good like a good argument. The answer to that question is very skewed because literally the definition of an athlete is someone who partakes in sports
Yeah, see, that's what I
or
thought
partakes
too.
in athletic activity.
Yeah,
So, athletics, the word itself, I think has to do with physical.
Right.
However, I know for a fact that esports like players are considered athletes.
Right.
Because first of all, like if you go onto any League of Legends players like fan page on Facebook or whatever, they're described as athlete. Like because you know how they have like a public figure.
Yeah,
or a
public
writer.
figure, yeah.
There's this athlete, and along with the fact that certain players are also able to get athletes visas into countries.
yeah, and
to
I
play
think
in
that's
tournaments.
completely great. I know it. I have mixed
Emotions.
opinions on it,
Mixed opinions, yeah.
or I'm very emotional about it. I'm very happy and sad. But like, I mean, I think it's great we can get athlete visas in, and also like, I don't think they should be separated, or for lack of better terms, because I forgot the word. Yeah, no, they should be separated. Like, we shouldn't have like football players being like, oh, athlete, then on the esports player having esports player, because that kind of defeats the whole entire purpose of the sport. But it's just strange for... I think it's just something I would have to get used to hearing, like, oh, I'm an athlete, and then they're an esports player. It's just... it's something I'm not used to.
I think that if you are really against it, it'll take a while to get used to. But personally, I don't see much of a difference because, like, literally the only difference... And it could be argued because, like, I've had this conversation with so many people multiple times because a lot of people in my family have never understood esports, and they're always like, oh, Brad, why do you play so much of that League of Legends game kind of thing? So...
Still good
technically,
for you.
if you technically want to get into the logistics of like physical sports, there's this thing not a thing. It's like something that you have to be good at in League, which is your mechanical skill, which is literally how well you're able to like execute commands and kind of stuff, which is a physical thing because you need to have the reaction time of like. I don't know what has good reaction time, but you need to have really good reaction time physically. Like your hands need to be able to like move like in like precisely, and you need to be able to press buttons on your keyboard like at the perfect like times and stuff like that. And buttons can be all over the place. So technically, if you want to get into logistics of it, it's an athletic sport because you need to have some athletic ability.
Yeah.
Like someone who is completely brain dead cannot be a good League of Legends player because they're not going to be able to move their hands correctly. Well, the same way they wouldn't be able to be a good traditional like athlete regardless, but so yeah, that's my argument against people who are like, oh, but it's not a physical sport, because technically you are there and you're physically doing something.
And may I point out, like, I'm not quite sure about the League community, but I know like MLG, most of those guys are like ripped because like they play video games, they work out and sleep. Like
so
that.
there are a lot of ripped guys, like especially one, for example, his name's Freakazoid. He's a CS:GO player for Team Cloud9. I actually have a picture of him, my edited in of me and him at Games 15. But he's a really jacked guy because what like esports coaches, managers, and psychologists have figured out is that you will perform best in games if you're physically fit, if you're eating healthy, if you're sleeping enough, which is why some pro league teams in Korea and some teams in America have started hiring chefs to prepare like healthy meals for the guys so that they're or gals, like specifically in the Renegades case, but for like so that they're mentally prepared for their games, so that they're like so they don't feel sick or whatever, like if they're, because there's a lot of really jacked players in specifically in the CS:GO scene, not so much in the league scene, but I know a couple of muscular guys, but there aren't so many. They do exist, but there aren't so many of your stereotypical fat, greasy, gamers, because I think that more came from like the World of Warcraft stereotype.
Like in mom's basement type thing. Yeah,
but there aren't actually too many of those because there is a lifestyle to people who are professional esports athletes, because they all live in a gaming house together and they all wake up together. They all eat like meals together. They all like go work out together. They train together, all that kind of stuff. So technically it sounds like you're just describing a sports team, but they're just doing something different in between their training times. So in reality, to me, I don't see that much of a difference, whereas a lot of people will just be like, oh, but all of that is correct, however, they're not doing anything, because they just don't understand what the esports part of it is.
But yeah, I mean, it's the same problem with like sexism or racism, just like with the way people are.
Yeah,
It's hard to convince people.
That's actually really accurate. That is very. That's a
I'm
very
not
accurate
saying.
point.
Don't get me wrong, people. I'm not saying
all people who don't
esports-
like esports are racist.
that I'm not saying esports are as big as a problem as racism
Yeah,
and
no, definitely
sexism.
not, definitely.
But it's similar.
So,
I'll get some hate for that.
so overall, your answer to the question: is it a sport?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sweet. That's one of the first people I've actually heard say that aren't involved in esports. So that's really
Well,
good.
like even my dad too isn't like the biggest fan of like staying up all night
Yeah.
playing video games. Like still sees it as a sport, like as he heard, because like he said, there's not a big difference.
Yeah. There's literally the only difference is you're not used to it yet.
Yeah.
In my mind, because okay, so this is extremely technical. So like, don't like start firing comments at me in the comment section. But there's a physical aspect to the games. There's a mental aspect to the games. There's a team aspect to the games. There's a competitive aspect to the games, and then there's a fan base slash like
Following.
following to the games.
Yeah.
So, and that's applicable to both traditional and esports.
Yeah.
So that's my closing statement for me. That yes, it is a sport. So and
Yeah,
you
I mean,
said-
I feel like just as someone who does partake in like traditional sports and not esports, sometimes I'm just kind of like, you know what? I wish I could respect it a little bit more. If like when they lost, the coach would be like, "All right, gentlemen, it's time for 50 push-ups," because push-ups are
So
kind of
it can be just as tedious. Well, I mean, I'm not going to say it can be just as tedious. It can,
yeah, I know. I'm just joking.
I know-
Like,
I know what you
I
mean.
come from like a
American football
American football is
yeah, yeah.
very disciplined, so like it's just Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But
I know
besides
what you
that, I mean, I would definitely say it's a sport.
Okay, cool. That's always good to know. Now we're gonna see if we can get our guest on, and I'll introduce him once he's on with us. So I'm gonna go ahead and call him on the Skype, because I'm old. Let's see if we can get him on here. Ring a ding ding. Hey, Psycho.
What's up, man?
Hello, Psycho.
Hey, so a slight introduction. This is Psychostep. He is the head coach for DLG Ice, a team under the DLG name. He's a 237 LP master player from the North American server. He's been coaching for about 3 years, yeah. So did I miss anything there? You want to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Yep. I'm Psychostep. Was a player for a long time. Hit a point to where I couldn't play as much. Came back to the game. Got stomped massively. Lost all my mechanics.
Yeah.
Because I had to be away for my job, and then so I went to coaching. So coached solo queue for about a year. Then I went to Team Fives. I've been a coach for 2 challenger teams, a master team, and then a couple diamond teams. Yeah.
You feeling all right,
That's
man?
me.
How was your surgery? He recently had knee surgery.
Yeah, ACL surgery.
Ooh. You feeling good? Feeling better?
Yeah, man. Got some medicine. Got my leg brace and stuff. So, you know.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and throw a couple questions at you. We've already answered some of these questions, and then some of these are going to be directed plainly at the fact that you are an esports coach, right? So
Okay.
we're going to start off with, to you, what separates an esport from a traditional sport, and what separates a game from an esport?
Ooh. Okay. So let's start with the first part. So, esport from traditional sport, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Alright. So, an esport, like, I can't say it's not physically demanding, because it is, because you have to sit here, you have to, like,
Be mechanically
pay
on
massive
point.
attention. Everything has to be mechanically on point. You have to be able to stay in shape so that you can actually sit here and actually, play.
Yeah.
Like I can't. It's so hard to compare esports and like let's say football, American football,
Right.
like wrestling, all these things because it's like its own separate world, its own
So-
sport.
I actually have a really interesting quote that I can read you that I already read out earlier in the podcast, but here, listen to this, and it might be able to wrap your head around it a little bit easier. So when I say blank, I'm taking out the name of a specific sport, and I want to see if you're able to to fill in the blanks kind of thing. So blank and blank are not that dissimilar. There are tournaments where you have to climb up a ladder to eventually compete with the best. In terms of training, you need to put in the same amount of hours, perhaps even in blank, you must do even more. You must study strategy, technique, opponents, all the elements are there, the excitement, the adrenaline, the players crying in tears of sorrow and joy. So are you able to fill in those 2 blanks?
Yes. So I would definitely say that as far as like putting in more time and effort and more demanding is definitely esports compared to regular sports. I would say that that the actual climbing of the ladder, the tournaments, checking out your opponents, having the strategy, all the adrenaline and everything, I definitely think esports has the upper hand in comparison to regular sports.
Right, so you're pretty much on point there. So specifically, the first blank is League of Legends, and the other one is Judo.
Oh, okay.
So,
nice.
Yeah, so that's the first question for you. So, right, so, and then we're just going to go to a slightly similar question, but, so, I'm pretty sure you made it quite obvious, but I still need to ask it to you. Are esports a sport?
Yes, definitely.
Nice, okay, so now we're going to go into a little bit more of your coaching in esports. So, how do you think your coaching style is different to other esports coach, and is there any specific esports coach that you model yourself after or admire?
Let's see. My style is I have a very love-hate relationship with all my players. I can be
Brutal.
really mean and brutal, but at the same time, I can praise them and tell them how awesome and how much they have improved and how good they are now. But it's the same as other coaches you'll see in like other sports. So let's say that you play American football or you play ice hockey or you play something like that. When you do something bad, the coach is going to get mad, he's going to get angry, and he's going to fix you. He's being mad and mean so he can make you better.
Yeah.
But it's the same exact thing with esports. As far as like coaches that I'd model myself after,
not necessarily model yourself after, just that there's an esports coach that you thought always did a good job, and you think that you try to like you can like use their mentality for your own kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. Season 4 Team Liquid head coach.
So that was Peter Zhang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His coaching style really worked with his players. He was able to really push his players without like causing too much drama or like making anyone feel too left out or unimportant. So he was really able to impact his team.
Which he did a really good job on, because this is actually really interesting because a lot of people don't know this, but they recently came out about this. That team had the most problems in almost, I'm going to say, NALCS history, because at the time the top laner was suffering from major depression. The jungler was going through really bad anxiety, and he was really afraid of being on the stage. And people, they would literally pause the games and say that Dom needed to go to the bathroom, whereas he would just go outside the studio and start crying just because he was too, like, under so much pressure. Like, it was crazy because he wanted to be there because it was his job, right? And he loved it. But Liquid had to contact Riot and be like, listen, our player has some really bad issues and he needs some, like, I guess, special treatment, almost like we need to pause the game sometimes because he gets really bad. So I can actually totally agree with you on that, because Peter did a really good job at keeping them in line, kind of thing. So, there's one more question, and it's actually from Sam. So he's gonna go ahead and ask this question. Wait, before we ask the question, I'm gonna clarify for those who don't know. Me and Psycho are colleagues. We both coach the same team together. He's the head coach, and I'm the assistant coach. So this is Sam's question.
Is Brad a good assistant coach?
He is. He's come a long way. Whenever he first started, he was really rough. His drafting was horrible. He didn't know how to approach the players. He barely knew how to approach me. Apparently, I was very intimidating. I don't know what that means, though. I guess it's because I'm, like, American, and
Man, you're
a
super
lot of
intimidating.
Americans are,
Look
you
at
know,
those
intimidating.
tats, bro.
But he started off rough. He got better over time. I tried to teach him. He took it in, got better. really was able to start working with the players, helping to improve them, helping to analyze what compositions we need to run, like what strategies work best with what players. Like, so his interactions got better, his drafting got better. So overall, like, he went from being an assistant coach to being, like, I would be comfortable with him taking over as a head coach, like, when I'm not there.
That's great.
Which is actually what happened over the past couple of, or actually past week while you were gone getting your knee surgery. I took over with assistance from Morrow, Alex, who just helped out with a little bit of the analysis, as he is the analyst. So, I mean, it's kind of his job. Thanks, Psycho, for coming on. Is there anything you wanna say, or you can even ask us some questions if you want?
How am I as a head coach, Brad?
Oh, jeez, that's rough. So Psycho, you are, I think, starting off, the reason why I thought you were intimidating was just literally your coaching style, because you can get very angry, and it pretty much just goes, oh, are we losing? Yep, I'm gonna go smoke, Brad. It's your job now to yell at the team, kind of thing. So that was always a little bit scary. But as a head coach, I think you're really good at disciplining the players, and you're really good at actually getting them in the right mentality for the games and making sure that they understand what it is they need to do. Otherwise, you'll just rip them apart. So I think a lot of teams could benefit from a coach like you, Psycho, because you're very good at what you do specifically.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Anything else, or?
No, man, I'm good.
All right, dude. Thanks for being on. Talk to you later. We have practice tonight, right? So.
Yep.
I'll see you then. Later, dude.
Later.
Take care, man.
All right, so that was DLG Psychostep, who is, like we said, the head coach for DLG Ice, which is the team that I'm the assistant coach for. So that was really interesting to get his input on all that, especially as someone who's very involved in esports himself.
Right.
So is there anything you want to add on to all of this after especially listening to what Psycho had to say?
I never thought of it as like Psycho said. It's interesting to hear how he said esports is very demanding, and coming from I know what Psycho does, which is I imagine very demanding.
And I'm sure he's fine with me saying this, but he's in the U.S. military, so hearing someone who's in the military
saying it's very demanding,
I think
it's clearly a demanding sport.
There has to be some truth to that.
Yeah, of course. So if he said that like maybe a couple of years ago, I would have maybe like laughed because I never saw esports as very demanding, but
it can be different.
Yeah, no, I appreciate hearing it, and it's funny. Psycho kind of sounds similar to my coach in like American football. Of like, wait, you agree? He's like, that's great, gentlemen, good job. But then afterwards, he's always like, gentlemen, it's like you play like a bunch of punks, gentlemen. I don't know what the fuck's gone through your heads.
I think Psycho's mentality when he's coaching is literally start off nice, destroy them to utter pieces, and then end nice. Because it's usually like, all right, guys, this is what we did well. This is why you all suck. Okay, now queue up for another game and just keep a good mentality. And I think he can agree with that. So now the conclusion, which I think is going to be extremely obvious, seeing as it's a 3-0 ratio, I guess you could say. Are esports a sport? Definitely from me.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely
I've heard
not.
no argument.
No
here
argument
at all.
So
you guys come home and just you sit around.
We sit around and we do nothing.
You play some what are they called? What are the things so you can see like torches or whatever in League of Legends?
Wards.
Wards. Yeah, you play wards at spawn.
Yeah, we play wards at spawn. Yeah, right. So Psycho just messaged me saying it was so hard not to swear. But yeah, we don't have any Q&A from you guys because you didn't send us anything, which is a little bit upsetting. But
more positive note, thank you for all the support.
Yeah,
for
that was
first
really,
episode.
I feel like that one 12-year-old YouTuber was like, oh my god, 10 subscribers, thank you so much. But like within the first,
do you remember that guy who was like Sir Fedora who was like he got 1 like on his first video, and they made a video going, we did it, people, we got the first like.
It's probably him liking his own video.
I know, that's what everyone said. But then some guy on Reddit shared it and got him like 80,000 likes or something.
That's pretty funny. But yeah, we actually went from in the first 14 hours, we got about 100 views and 10 subscribers. Right now, we're at like 22 subscribers and like 145 views, which is
interesting because we went to 125 and then we dropped to
119.
119, and then we're now at 140. I'm not quite sure what happened.
I'm not sure
there.
what happened to YouTube, but you know, YouTube needs to sort out their priorities.
But yeah, thanks for all the support, guys. Really, even some like people that I know from like school and stuff, from, like more acquaintances. But they're like, "Oh, I listen to your podcast." I was like,
"What are you doing? Yeah, what are you talking
like,
about?"
You know Patrick? He listens to it. Cushy listened to it. I was like, "What?"
I was like, "Who are you? And why are you listening to our podcast?" I appreciate it.
Thank you, though.
Thank you so much.
Some kid in my Arabic class went, Sam, listen, good podcast. I was like, middle of class. As the teacher was talking about like milk, he was like, Halib? Is this Halib? And he was like, great podcast. It was great.
All right, now for my favorite segment of the show, Absolute BS, and BS not meaning, I'm not going to say it, but meaning Absolute Brad and Sam. I'm going to start off real quick, and if you want to do one after, which I'm pretty sure you have a good arsenal. So this one isn't exactly so funny as it is true. We have an English teacher who is a very interesting English teacher. I'll leave it at that. But we were talking in class about we were doing something about Romeo and Juliet, but I don't know how we got onto this subject, but we ended up talking about gaming and how she bought her husband a couple of games, I think for PS4. Yeah, she said PS4. So she bought her husband a couple of games for PS4. She got Gran Turismo and she got GTA, GTA 5. And at first we were all like, okay, that's cool. And then I don't know, she started talking to us about it. And
she said she didn't know how to like work it.
Yeah, she didn't know how to work it and stuff. But we were like, okay, yeah, Gran Turismo is a good game. GTA is a good game, assuming that she knew what was in GTA.
Yeah.
And we started talking about it, and she was like, what? You know, because like I was like, well, I mean, there's always like the good parts of the game where you can like buy cool cars and like actually earn money and stuff, but there's also the part where there's drug deals, red light districts, and like murdering.
Yeah, and I described that. It's like if it's in like California or LA, it's probably in GTA. And then her face was just like,
she was like,
wait, does that mean? I was like, yes. Like,
oh, so we got to, and that's not even like the height of this story, because that was pretty funny. But the biggest funny part that I got from this was when we were about to leave class. She was like, "Oh, my husband spends so much time on the weekends playing games," and then me and my buddy were just like, "So like, how much does he play on the weekends?" She's like, "Oh, like a lot," and I was like, "Okay, like how much is a lot?" And she's like, "It can be like 3 to 4 hours," and I was just like, "Filthy casual." Like, that's nothing. It's so weird thinking about it because, like,
no, it's funny because like I was like this weekend, as we talked before, I played Call of Duty Zombies, and I was setting up an Easter egg, and that Easter egg takes like 2 hours to set up by itself. That's like half of his playing time.
People don't respect the amount of effort you need to put in.
And the amount of frustration happens when like one stupid thing happens. Like oh my god, my game crashed one time. I set this up, and then I finally got to, like the final boss fight, and I was fighting him after 2 hours, and then my game crashed. And I was like, oh, an error occurred, and then it's like there's no checkpoints or anything. It's just kind of like, that sucks for you, man.
Yeah, well, that's great. So what's your story for the segment? You got one?
Yeah. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw like a warning out there real quick. Okay. I don't know if you're like 5.
Okay.
Maybe don't listen to it. But so last Saturday, I'm home and it's about like a midnight, and my dad's Saturday. And my dad's still keeping me up, and I'm sure everyone knows, but the way the weeks work in Dubai is that it's Friday, Saturday, or essentially Saturday, Sunday, as in Friday, Saturday are the weekends, and then Sunday through Thursday.
We go back to school. It's back to our work week.
So my dad has me up at 12 on a school night. So he's 12, and he's a bit drunk.
Oh. And
he's a bit like rambling on about stuff. And he's like, "Now, Sam."
Well, hey, to be fair, no good story ever starts out with, "Well, I was eating a salad." And then,
I mean, I don't know, man. I've had some good stories involving milk, but that's not good.
All right,
so my dad's like, all right, Sam. He asked me like this, and he's like, all right. And he's like drinking a little bit, and he's like threatening to like punch me or something. Like, not bad. Don't get me wrong. It sounds bad. Like a little, or something like that. Yeah. So he's like, now look. He was like, when I was 18, there is this girl. I'm not gonna say her real name because I kind of forgot, but it's something like Tira McCauley. We'll call her Tira McCauley. That's her real name.
Okay.
So Tira, he knew Tira in middle school. I'll let you go, Brett. So he knew Tira in middle school, but they weren't so hot in middle school. When I came to college, Dad was like 18. Tira liked my dad a little bit. I'm saying this how he said it. He's like, she liked a little bit of me. He's like, so one night we're at Tira's, and things get a little excited. And he's like, now I'm a good Catholic boy, all right? Because my dad had been going to Catholic school at the time. My dad's not religious now, but at the time, you go to Catholic school. He's like, so I was like, oh, marriage. It's like, so I didn't go all the way. Thing. It's like. But there may have been some titty sucking and finger fucking. I don't know. Maybe. I was like, Dad, were you just humble bragging about yourself when you're 18? He's like, no, it's a life story. He's like, I want you to know these things. I was like,
man, if everybody's dad was that chill, that would be so weird. Man, I admire his dad so much. He's so awesome. Like the first time I went to his house. Like this is like about a little bit more than a year ago at this point.
Oh yeah, a year and a half ago.
Is I walk into their house and he comes in. He's pretty drunk again.
No. And you had been at my house and they were out.
Sorry?
You were at my house and they were out when they come home.
Yeah. And then we were playing CS:GO and he comes in. He walks in pretty smashed, if I do say so myself. And he stands up and it's the first time I met him. And he shakes my hand. And he says, "We are a very Orthodox Muslim family." and I was just like, "Oh, hello." And he was like, "Nah, I'm just messing with you." Yeah. And then we just go back onto our regular daily routine. So yeah, that's a really good story to.
Yeah, most of my stories are going to either involve like my dad or my brother.
Yeah, those are some good stories, and maybe we can make some stories on our weekly life to make the podcast more interesting.
I'm planning to do something in the next couple of weeks that may be story worthy.
Whoa. I might have ruined this, but it's fine. Continue.
I'm planning to do something in the next couple of weeks that may be story-worthy. I'm not sure, but we'll see.
Maybe story-worthy. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and, since I've already started it, we're going to start it again. A nice goodbye to everybody. Thank you for listening. Stay sexy. Stay gorgeous. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, thank you for watching.